How about you, Mike? Where's your go-to? What do you think of when you think about good things to do at home?
Games, and I mean like real games. I don't,
Oh,
there's real games and there's school games. Okay, maybe I'll throw
yeah,
in
yeah.
some shade here, but like these math board games, I'm like, oh, these would be great for a center. And you get the game, and it's like you roll die and you move to a space, and then you solve a problem. And if you can get that right, then you're fine. If you get it wrong, you lose a turn or something. There's nothing fun about those games. All right, Zach. So last episode, you and I were talking about homework, up or down, where are we? And I think we both pretty much agreed, like, we're not big fans of it, but we had some qualifiers, right? We did mention there are times when there are things that we can do at home with our kids, or that families can do at home with their kids that can be productive and things. And although we still, I think, have that hard line around, like, really, the research backs that homework's not the thing, right? But in all fairness, we should unpack some things that could be beneficial. So maybe you can get us kicked off a little bit around, like, so what are some instances where doing math or doing homework in some ways, or what are things that we could do at home that could be helpful, productive?
Yeah. Yeah, Mike, we've talked in a previous episode also about how we might qualify real world math with a broader umbrella, right? Like not just sort of like force fitting something in there. So it will be no surprise to our listeners that I really think we got to cast a wide net there and think really really deeply about what we mean when we say real world math, because that opens up a door of possibilities of what we can do at home that feels joyful. That I think that'll be a big theme, at least my message today, about making sure that whatever math you do at home is joyful. There's so much baggage that comes along with school math and experiences in math class for so many young folks that any math you do at home, it's got to start and end with joy. And if it's not feeling joyful, it's time to walk away, right? So that's my sort of number one qualifier. But we both get asked this question a whole lot, like what should we be doing at home with our kids for math, right? Like, I spoiler alert, I don't think it's flashcards. Maybe I'm starting where it should not be, but my go-to answer, especially for parents with young children, like ages 3 to 8, is count everything. Just you're always counting, right? You're always thinking about counting. You're always predicting how many you might need of something. Really simple questions like, hey, we've got, there's 4 members of our family and we have 2 people coming over for dinner. Like, how many glasses do we need? How many plates do we need, right? Like thinking about all of that counting work and computation work that you can do with really simple, natural ways that kids can engage. It'll be, counting stairs. We've talked a lot about that. Always a fun thing to do with young people. But so for me, it leads with like, just start by counting. Count everything that you can, count all the time, and you will find all these natural instances where you can start to estimate when you see a big array of something out in the world. Like, how many do you think there are up there, right? Like, all that work is really powerful and joyful math. How about you, Mike? Where's your go-to? What do you think of when you think about good things to do at home?
Well, first, I'm going to concur with all of those things. Like counting really, like I always tell families when I was teaching a lot was one of the very first assessments I would always do with my second graders was just have a pile of pennies and ask them to count 46 out. That was investigations assessment, but it was so powerful because you could tell just from that one assessment where students' number sense was. You could see the way they'd organize and what counting principles do they have under their belt
Mm-hmm.
and what things still need to be worked on. So counting is super strong and it's fun to do. I love how you situated it with like estimation because it's a natural thing to do. It's like, how many do you think there are? And then once you make your prediction, your estimate, of course, you want to find out what the actual is. And so there's like an authenticity of the counting. It's not
Ooh.
just, let's just count these things for the sake of counting. But I even like when Cora when she was like a baby, when we were still doing like the formula and stuff, I remember we would heat it up. It was like 30 seconds to heat it up. And we would count backward. I would count backwards at first from 30. And like as her, you she began to speak and everything, she would count back with me. And like a lot of it was like mimicry at first, but then like that was just something she was really comfortable counting forward and backwards. So counting is great, and you could do it with toddlers just all the way through. But the other thing I'll add is games, and I mean like real games. I don't.
Ooh.
There's real games and there's school games. Okay, maybe
Yeah,
I'll throw
yeah.
in some shade here, but like
Yeah.
there's good school games. Let me put a qualifier before we get hate
Yeah.
comments and things.
For sure.
But
Here they
like
come.
we've all, I'm willing to bet, teachers have gone to like back in the day we had like teacher like stores like I think it was like
Oh,
Hammett
yeah.
Learning or something like that, and or the Lakeshore Catalog or something, that I would see like these math board games. I'm like, oh, these would be great for a center. And you get the game and it's like you roll die and you move to a space and then you solve a problem, and if you can get that right, then you're fine. If you get it wrong, you lose a turn or something. There's nothing fun about those games. So I mean, games that the game itself is really engaging, but the math is the vehicle. So something as common as Yahtzee, like when you have to total up your scores, right? Or cribbage, like card games that where you're constantly doing lots of math, lots of mental math.
Yeah.
Anything that like rolling two dice and having to like subitize and like learn how to uh, basically make sense of quantity, moving on the board. Like that idea of like, are you counting the space that you're on, or you do the next space? That's all the foundational work for like understanding how number lines work and everything. And it's just good quality time. Like the game is the activity, right? We're playing this game, and the math is the vehicle for us to like decide who wins or loses, or if we both,
Yeah.
whatever. But the math, it's not. It doesn't feel like doing math. And it's like, and I'm not saying that we need to hide math. Like I'm not one to avoid math, but I just
Sure.
feel like it's a way to authentically engage with your kids in meaningful, fun ways. It's bonding, but it also situates math in this like purposeful position that's fun and helpful.
Yeah. Oh man, I love games so much, and I'm with you on the real game situation here. Like, if you're talking about young kids stuff, Shoots and Ladders, super fun game where they're counting and they're estimating where they might want to go and how much further to make sure they don't go down the ladder. What do they want to roll
Yeah.
to make sure they do, or go down the chute, I guess. How much do they want to get to go up the ladder? Like all that stuff's so good. There's one-to-one correspondence happening in those when you roll a dice and you have to move a certain way. So even games that don't feel mathy for young children are really great. I gotta tell you though, Mike, I was at CMC North last year at their game night, and I sat down with our buddy Howie Hua and a bunch of other Northern California folks and played a game called Flip Seven. Do you know Flip Seven?
No, I don't.
Okay, must have game. It is
All right.
the premise of this game, guys, is there's a deck of cards and there's 12 12s, there's 11 11s in there, there's 10 10s, there's 9 9s, 8 8s, all the way down to there's actually 1 0. And it's a game of like chance a little bit. So you get dealt a card, and if I get dealt a 12, it goes all the way around, it comes back to me. I can decide whether I want to take another card or whether I want to stay. But if I get a card that matches, if I get another 12, I bust. So I know there's 12 12s in the hand. I'm probably there's a lot of 12s in there, right? And there's only but if I would have got dealt a 3, I know there's only 2 other 3s in there. The goal is to try and get as many points as you can in a round without busting. So there's a little bit of risk, there's a little bit of chance, but you're computing all the time the total sum that you have, and you're thinking about like you're having to sum up the other players' things. So you might want to beat them in that round. Great game that is so fun for the whole family. You could play it with as young as 6 and 7 year olds if you helped them with some of the computation
Yeah.
if you needed to. But like, love it. Flip Seven is
Oh, you're
fantastic.
laying the
Yeah,
groundwork for
let's go.
card counting and like craps and stuff, right?
For sure.
Life
It's a
skills.
real gambling situation in here that I'm down with. Yeah,
Yeah.
teach.
But but actually I wrote that down because those are the kind I love those kind of games. But another thing to think about with games like this, I don't know if you remember this game. Do you remember crossbows and catapults? When you like this is,
No.
oh dude, oh
Feels like a D&D situation here. Let's
it
go.
is. It is amazing. This is like a total Gen X kind of game because, like, I'm sure, look at safety regulations now. You're not allowed to have it. Like, you actually would have catapults that you'd launch these pretty heavy plastic pieces toward your opponent's castle. You build these castles that are kind of loosely structured, and then you just work to smash them down. But you had these like Vikings and barbarians where like you picked which side you want. You actually had little like plastic figures for these warriors, and Cora, I'll just say, she loves this game. I still have my set. This is how good it is. When you're up next time, Zach, I'm bringing
We're
it
doing
to
it.
the studio.
I
We're
can't
playing
wait.
crossbows and catapults. But here's the thing. A way you can determine how, like, who wins, or a way that we play, we kind of modify the directions, but is how many of the other players were knocked down. And so we just say knocked down. We don't say killed or anything like that.
Yeah, yeah.
But what, like, Cora does is, like, she'll lay her like knockdown players next to mine, and like she's doing comparison,
Ooh.
right? So
Yeah.
this is just a natural thing. It's not like I told her to do this. So even things like how many more do we have, or who's winning, or things like provide these opportunities. So what that brings for me is like on top of all these things we're suggesting, whether it's counting, estimating, playing games, the questions we ask can be really helpful. So for families or for teachers, encouraging families, helping people recognize the types of questions you could ask to elevate some of the math. So, like
Mm-hmm.
I could say, so who's ahead by how many? Like, how much did you win by, and how would you think about that? How do you know? How many would I need to knock down to equal your score?
Yeah.
And these are just general curiosity questions that, in the context of playing the game, it makes the math just a natural part of the process versus feeling like a worksheet or like flashcard or math fact practice. And it gets at all these fundamental building blocks of number sense, and
Yeah.
it's really helpful. So just
We
another piece to the puzzle
we
here.
we probably should have just named this episode Zach and Mike's favorite board games, maybe. Like, I don't know. We're just all sharing on. But let's stay with for a second, Mike, and let's get real. So again, everything that we've been talking about so far, I think all this leads with joy. This leads with positive math experiences. You're having fun. It feels natural. But like, what do we say to parents who have a third grader and their teacher saying like your kid needs to know their facts by the end of the year? Like, how can parents really help their kids develop fluency at home? Like, what are some things you think of, and what are some go-tos when parents ask you, how do I help my kid know their facts?
Well, I mean, so I always think about what are ways, like the whole part about math facts is that it so students need to learn strategies for how to think about them, right? It's not just memorization, like, oh, it's 8 and 7 is 56 because I've just associated those two next to each other with 56. Like they need to have some ways to think about that. Whether it's using like fact that they already know and then deriving that fact, or if they decompose it, if like, well, I know like 4 times 7, so 8 times 7 is just like double that, like that
Hmm.
kind of reasoning. Like, so students need opportunities to be able to think about those things, and then when they've got strategies, the what the research shows is that you want meaningful practice. And so practice is just having lots of opportunities to perform those calculations. It doesn't have to be flashcards. It doesn't, although I'm not totally opposed to flashcards, Zach, as well as you are, maybe. But
Hmm.
I do think they're helpful when they're attached to strategic thinking and meaning. And so I think sometimes it can be a fun way for, or maybe not fun, but sort of a good sort of checkpoint to see which facts do I feel comfortable with and which ones do I still need to work on. I love that, just sorting by that, and then finding if like any kinds of games and or scenarios where students can practice some of those, the that multiplication or that addition or whatever.
Yep.
That's where games come in. And I know this is like a paid resource here, but I do want to shout out Graham Fletcher and Tracy Zager, two of our friends, so we can disclose that. But the building fact fluency kits, what I'll say that I found with their kits that I really love are that the games that are in there are really fun games. Every single one of those games does not feel like that school math
Yep.
games. And so there's a predictable structure to the games, but it provides really interesting ways to perform those computation with a lot of flexibility, which is a big part of meaningful
Yep.
practice. So for me, it's repetition, games, something that's engaging and tied to strategy. What about
I'm
you? You got some
I'm coming
ideas?
I'm coming for it, Mike. I'm also actually a fan of flashcards at home. I'm okay with this.
Yeah.
I think they're probably okay in some senses at school as well. But we're talking about home today. So let me tell you why I think this. One, I, everything I'm saying, everything we're both saying is, I think, really great ways for how parents can engage with their kids at home in math. However, there are a lot of parents who don't have time to think about and learn all of these things we're talking about, right? And flashcards is a pretty easy way for you to kind of help get some repetition and some rhythms in there that you could be a part of with your kid. My advice to parents is, one, try and make it as joyful as you can. If they start getting frustrated with some, like, pull them out of the card deck or whatever. I love this task called Three Piles. I don't know if you've ever played it before. You got a deck of flashcards or whatever. You
Hmm.
turn one up. If they know it right away, you put it in the I've got it pile. If it takes them a little bit of time, but they get it, so they're like 8 times 7, like, all right, well, cool. That's 4 times 7. Like you said, I'll double it. That goes in the middle. Like I don't have it, from memory yet, but I can get it. And then there's the like I just don't know pile. And so what that does is it allows you to kind of usually what happens is the I don't know it all stack is pretty small, and it's an uplift of like, look at all these things that I actually do know,
Yeah.
which is how we got to reframe times tables altogether, because we always start with like kids don't know their times tables, and they know a lot of times tables, right? And then I'm going to shout out one other resource as well from another one of our friend of ours, the Multiplication by Heart program from Math for Love, and what Dan's doing over there. Like, you should check out
Yep.
that, parents. I think they just released addition and subtraction by heart as well. Great card games. They are flashcards, but there's a routine you go through every night with your child to kind of like play. It feels joyful and playful, and they are beautiful as well. So I always recommend Multiplication by Heart. But even if you don't have the $25 to get that, just get a deck of index cards, write them out there, and get some reps in with the kids, but make it joyful for sure. All right, Mike, we're coming close to time. You got any last words here? Any takeaways?
Yeah. One other thing with flashcards is also calling out some colleagues of ours. So what I loved when we were teaching the investigations curriculum is the flashcards had, the way they structured is they had 7 and 8 and 8 and 7 together, right? 8 times 7, 7 times 8. But they had a little spot for a hint. And I really love this idea, because the idea of the hint wasn't like, oh, it rhymes with like,
Yeah.
something where it's the hint was, so for example, like 7 times 8, it could be 7 times 4 is the hint to remind me of a fact that I know that could help me think about this one. So it was a cue, so that if like you're doing that 3 piles, right? And you flip it over, if you're like, I don't have it automatically, but looking at that hint, let me derive, like I was able to get to that, and then that's sort of in that middle pile there. So it was a cue for kids to think, what's the strategy I could use here, which develops automaticity with those strategies. So I love that. And great shout out with subtraction by heart, because that's the one that's on our kitchen counter at home right now.
I love it.
But I think this is great, Zach. And I love this. I guess the last word around this is what you said, which is, if this stops being joyful, stop. Like because learning is done once like that frustration spot hits. So like, pump the brakes. So that's really good advice that you gave, and I think I just wanted to reiterate that one more time.
I love it. Okay, folks, let us know what we missed. What else do you love about doing math at home with kids? What else can parents use? What can teachers suggest to parents? Let us know, and we will see you all next month on another episode of the Educator's MathCast. Take care, everybody.
See ya.
This show is powered by the Friends of Flint Education Collaborative for pre-K through 8th grade educators with live learning, ready-to-use resources, and a supportive community. Members get early access to the episodes and other bonuses.